having better access to better quality data has honestly been really a game changer for setting a strategy, and then also being able to define when we know whether or not it's working or if we're off track. And when we're off track, then adjusting the strategy versus being like, oh, today I don't really feel like it. I came up with a new idea. I think, founders probably often like this. I'm definitely like this. Every week it's like, got this new idea, this thing we should be doing. And so I have the internal team knows that and like keeps me honest on it.
Rock and roll. Welcome to Tough Talk. Thanks for joining.
You. Glad to be here.
Thanks for joining me, especially like this time of year. It's so busy. Tough Talk is kind of just a side project Tough has taken on. We're having what we're calling tough conversations about growth, whether that's personal growth or company growth, and what it's like to be part of kind of like a hyper growth, fast moving company. And so I'm really excited to pepper you, Eleanor,
Nice.
with questions. And the first one is, and my guess is you hear this a bit, but you've been the co-founder and CEO of Pathstream for the last 4 years, but prior to that, you've had careers, including an investment banker. I love on Twitter, you say reformed finance junkie. And I'm curious, how did that career path, if at all, prepare you to run your own business?
That's a great question. It was super helpful, and one of the reasons why, so I didn't go into finance because I wanted to necessarily work in finance forever, but the skill set that I picked up of learning just how companies work from a financial standpoint has that a lot of my job is raising money and managing our investors and looking at how are we allocating our resources. And so understanding the perspective of our investors is super helpful. And as a female founder, the first way of like being able to build credibility in those spaces of raising money is being able to talk the talk and like knowing your numbers and being able to own that you understand how the mechanics of like what the investors are trying to get out of this, as well as the mechanics of your own business. So it's been, there's lots of things it doesn't teach you, but that has been super helpful and it's good for this role.
I'm curious though, how, at Tough, we've never gone through that process. We work with a lot of businesses that are actively raising capital, and I'm always left with how do founders and co-founders and CEOs, how do you raise money and grow your business? What is it like in terms of prioritizing those two things?
It's not easy. I'd say that one of the like hardest since early on, like in the very early days when we were pre-revenue, there really didn't have so many operations. So I could step away and do fundraising, and we were still kind of doing R&D and looking into various things, and so that was kind of easier. The hardest chapter of this company, or like one of them, was earlier this year trying to take over the marketing function myself. I'd never done marketing before, and so that's piece of sort of running the business while in the middle of fundraising was just brutal. There's like nothing. There's no good answer to that. This time around, it always ends up just being finding the right people on your team that you can trust, which is the kind of classic answer. But that's super hard to do and super hard to time. And so people use that as why don't you just go do that? And the timing doesn't always work out. So sometimes you just have to do it all.
I have two questions about that, but the first one is, we always really appreciate and like when founders and co-founders, like people who have experience running marketing or running growth for their business before they bring on a team like Tough, because they've established traction and they can help think about success metrics and really talk to us about data. Did you find that like to be, despite it being another hat to wear, but we find it valuable. Do you find it valuable now, even though maybe you're not doing a lot of the day-to-day marketing, but like, do you feel like you're a little closer to the direction in which your marketing team is headed?
Meaning, was it helpful for me to have done marketing for a little while now? But when we started with Tough, I had never done marketing before, and I was in like my intro online courses. I'm trying to figure out how do you do marketing and like how do you set up the marketing system. So you you got not your ideal client out of that. But I think that working super closely with Kristen, I learned a ton from her. She was great about both advising and teaching me along the way. And that was one of the value props that really resonated with me when you and I first talked was, we'll both help you, get going and like running your marketing and doing all of these initiatives, but we'll also provide with a lot of visibility and transparency into how we're doing it. And you all have taught our team, none of whom, or except for Caroline, are marketing professionals, how to be partners in this and like how to have a perspective, which we need to have because we know our business, even though we don't know marketing, and we've got to be able to have that dialogue and like at least be educated to talk with you all about it. So that's been like a wonderful part of our partnership.
I'm curious. I mean, you work a lot with Kristen, as you mentioned, and I asked her, I go, tell me something about Eleanor I don't know. And she wrote me that she said she's impressively detailed. And just like she kind of goes on around, given the size of the company, how many people work on your team, how many moving parts there are, that she really admires your ability to keep up with it and everything that's going on and having this kind of consistent pulse on the business. And I'm curious, does that take a toll? Like kind of like the big picture visibility, able to like to zoom in on the day to day and then pull your head up and also think about where the business is going. Like, is that exhausting?
It does take a toll, but to me, it's all kind of plays an important role of seeing what's happening in marketing gives me really important information about what is the opportunity for this company and how much capital should we be raising and what other areas of the business should we be investing in? Like, where are we getting traction with which audiences? So I find that learning through the operations is just as important as learning through talking to in sales, like externally or through investors or through reading market research. So to me, it's like all information gathering that comes together and where should we be going and trying to be intellectually honest about the future.
Yeah, I've always found that it's like usually like a collection of data points and conversations that help put a little bit of the future in focus. It's not often, at least for me, like one thing. There haven't been a lot of like that thing led to this decision. It's more of like a combination
there's
of
some here and here.
Yeah, exactly.
And when enough of those click into place, you're like, okay, I feel like we have the right path forward.
Sometimes I wish they would click a little faster. So when you talked about fundraising, just kind of balancing that, you mentioned finding a team you really trust. I'm curious, when you're finding the right people for Pathstream, is there a set of criteria that you look for in those hires?
I think marketing has been, if you're particularly interested in that area, it's been our hardest area to hire in. And, my hypothesis is that just the field has changed so quickly and that marketing is so different for different stages of companies that it's so easy to mishire. And so for us, having people internally learn more about the field and then finding great external partners to complement that has been a great, it has seemed that we've tried a number of things in the past, and this has definitely been the best recipe so far. But in general, I think that it's a commonly said thing that your first, 20 or so employees at a startup are probably some of the best 20 employees you will ever have. And that remains true. We just did a whole list of our promotions, our like recent promotions, and people who have been at the company for 3 years and have learned totally new skill sets because they really get what we're doing. And so I think we're really keen on looking for opportunities to promote from within, even if people are like totally changing fields that they work in.
It's so interesting. I think that like when we hire at Tough, we talk about that a lot. Like sometimes we'll be like, the rate in which we are adapting and evolving and learning is at a high speed. And it's common. You're going to look at something you did 3 months ago and maybe like cringe because you're at such a different place. And
you're like, oh, that was a cute idea we used to have.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I think some people love that pace, because you are able to take where the experiences that you're going to get at a fast growing small team might take you 3 to 5 years to get at a larger organization. You're going to get it in 3 months, and that can be overwhelming. But I do think for the right individuals who thrive in that, like, I have enough structure, but there's a lot of gray space, and I can raise my hand high for things I want. Wow, it is so incredible to see the progression. We 100% agree with you. We talk about like our employee market fit and
there are a lot of things that we can't offer as an early stage company. So we have to really lean into the things that we can offer, and we should be transparent about the fact that it's not always going to be a 40-hour work week. And that's something that has to be there's no reason for us to hide that and try to pretend like we are Google when we're not. So it's good to be transparent about what the opportunities are and what they all have trade-offs. So making sure people who want those trade-offs. Agree with you.
I want to dig into Pathstream a little bit more. So I've seen you be vocal about there are a lot of articles in the world that talk about they're a little clickbaity, but they talk about, no college degree, no problem. And you've kind of been vocal about those types of articles. Can you just talk to me a little bit more about your perspective on those?
Specifically on the college degree situation?
Yeah.
Yeah, I always end up going way too wonky on this. So I'll try to not get too wonky on this.
Hey, bring it on. That's what Tough Talk's about. Let's get wonky.
I think on the college degree piece, that just the reality of it is that there are many, many more job opportunities that are open to somebody when they have a college degree on average. And however, the best source of information for anyone who is out there who really wants to go deep on this is Georgetown Center of Education and the Workforce. And they have done tons of in-depth research on which degrees matter, which degrees don't matter by university, by degree. And what ends up being the case is that there's a lot of people with associate's degree that make more than people with certain bachelor's degree. And the labor market doesn't exactly make sense. I think for us, we want to make sure that individuals are able to earn towards a degree, because we recognize that we cannot change society as fast as we would like. And so let's be honest about that. And at the same time, provide the shortest, fastest pathway to economic mobility in the meantime, while they're getting those credits. So that's really our approach to the problem. If I'm going to take my 2-minute soapbox on this topic, that the thing I really wish the U.S. government would really just do and get on board with, that would, I think, be one of our quickest ways of solving some of the labor market issues, is right now the government funds through Pell Grants and Title IV funding college degrees. And that has come under fire, and for a lot of different reasons. And we're thinking about, maybe we'll just open this up and be a free community college for all. I don't think that's the right solution. And what we really should have is a curated list of programs that every individual has access to an annual slot that they can take. And the programs that are available are just meant to specifically help individuals go from under $50,000 a year to over $50,000 a year and get into the digital economy and get into a more stable life. And Amazon Career Choice is a program that does this right now, but that should be done on a national government scale. It should not be done just through Amazon. You have to work for Amazon to access that. But it's a super effective model. Programs are short format, and they have amazing outcomes, because you cannot be on Amazon's list if you cannot prove these outcomes. And every year they review you, they kick you out if you don't hit the outcomes. You have to pause a year, you can come back and try again. And so it's not a bunch of BS of bureaucracy of who you know and how you sign partnerships. It's just, do you have the data? Great, anyone can try it. A year later, we'll see if you did it. If not, sorry, you didn't do what you said you could. So would love to see something like that be rolled out, instead of trying to solve this through the more bureaucratic, let's save the higher ed system type approach, which is just a very different problem. I think we're conflating the issues.
I want to know more about the curated list of programs, because I think one thing our team is so fascinated about with Pathstream is you have 4, certificate or tracks for your programs, and you could have picked a lot. You could have decided let's do 15, and maybe you started there. But the kind of laser focus on a select number, to me, I'm curious, how much research went into that selection, and why did you pick the ones that you offer?
We started with skills that we determined were these would get you to a career that has upward mobility, and you wouldn't be stuck. This, where we get you is not an endpoint, and it would be really a launch pad. And so the way we thought about it was, everything we teach needs to be a no regret skill. Even if you take a first program with Pathstream and you learn something about project management, and then you discover I actually really want to be work in Salesforce, or I really want to be a data analyst, not going to be a bad thing that you took a course in project management. And so that's one of the ways we started. And it was really, we also leveraged a bunch of research from McKinsey on gateway jobs. There are these like secret gateway jobs, that they are the right transition point from low wage work into your first opportunity career. And they've been identified where you leverage soft skills that you build in frontline work, layer on a hard skill that's in high demand, that's highly applicable across every industry. And that's the recipe that you need in order to transition into your first kind of level 1, level 2 office role.
The idea of like no regret skill is so fascinating. I also feel like you could apply that to your to-do list. Am I going to regret doing that or not?
No regrets things that you put on your to-do list before you start.
My last question, Eleanor. I know. I think I need to try it. Be a little bit more strict with myself, but. The last question I have is kind of around prioritization. And I think we talk about that a lot at Tough when it comes to growth, because oftentimes with our partners, it's even in the stage that they're at, it's still kind of, how do you optimize when you have limited time, resources, budget, whatever the constraints are? You have to be specific about what you work on and what you do not work on. And that's just for marketing and growth. And I do think that a lot of prioritization goes into running a business. And curious with Pathstream, are there any specific, is it metrics and KPIs that help you prioritize, or is it like the next milestone? Like, what is your criteria when something's in front of you, whether or not you're making that decision of, yes, we're going to work on that, or no, we're not? Like, what is it that helps shape that decision making?
Functionally, what ends up helping with the prioritization is we have, like within our leadership team, some checks and balances of the people who continue to say, we're not doing this. We committed to these metrics, and I think we've gotten better. Like, data has been having better access to better quality data has honestly been really a game changer for setting a strategy, and then also being able to define when we know whether or not it's working or if we're off track. And when we're off track, then adjusting the strategy versus being like, oh, today I don't really feel like it. I came up with a new idea. I think, founders probably often like this. I'm definitely like this. Every week it's like, got this new idea, this thing we should be doing. And so I have the internal team knows that and like keeps me honest on it. But we have some really good, we've been using more data and have some good structured pillars around. These are the things that are important for us. We have to achieve like financial viability. We have to achieve like amazing outcomes for our students. And we have to like differentiate our offering, like, and grow the company. And so all of our KPIs and metrics come out of that. And so we have over time, just, you see the focus early on in a company. You have to make so many small bets because you don't know what you're going to do out. And the tangible progress, if we're making progress as a company, is looking at our OKRs and seeing them like getting more and more focused and more specific and fewer of them. That's just been our, like, okay, we're walking in the right direction if we have more focus. So I think having everyone aligned on that being the goal is also helpful, right?
I know I said that was my last question, but because of the time of the year, I've looked at a lot of OKRs for my team recently, and I'm curious, is there anything in particular on your own OKRs that you're most excited about?
Oh, coming up for this next year? Growth loops.
Yeah.
We've done a lot of, not loopy growth, but linear and expensive growth. And so I'm excited for us to, like, we had to figure out digital ad platforms because we had to go fast, but I'm really excited about us figuring out how to have more reinforcing growth and more organic growth, et cetera. And like, obviously working with the Tough team is like super, super important to that work. So seeing things like sort of take off in small ways.
We like to call it intentional growth. Because you're right, in the beginning, you have to rely on some of these channels that maybe aren't going to be great long term to get you up and running and to get your traction, to get some scale. But then ultimately, you need to think about, how do I take more control in terms of the direction we're growing and put like an intentional focus. Rock and roll. Thank you so much for chatting with me, Eleanor.
Yeah, absolutely. I hope we covered what you wanted to cover today.
We tackled it. That is it. Big fans of Pathstream over here, and appreciate your time so much.
Likewise, thank you so much for having your team, be such great cultural and intellectual contributors to all the work that we've done. It's been a great year with you guys, and super excited to kick off next year.
2022, here we come.
Here we come. All right, good to see you. Thanks for the time.